this video, we will revise chapter 1. Firstly, I will give you some questions without any answer. Try to guess the answer. Try to find out the answer. And then I am going to run through all the questions and try to answer them with you. Question number 1. Put true or false and to correct the false statements. Participation, number 1. Participation in psychological research must be voluntary. Again, question number 1. Participation in the psychological research must be voluntary. Question number 2. Participants in psychological research include humans only. Again, participants in psychological research include humans only. Question number 3. Verbal reports is referred to as body language. Verbal reports is referred to as body language. Please try to find the answer, and then I am going to run through all questions and answer them with you. Reasoning is considered as overt behavior. Reasoning is considered as overt behavior. Description leads to establishing cause-effect relationships between variables. Description leads to establishing cause-effect relationships between variables. Physiological changes are like heart rate and secretion of saliva. Physiological changes are like heart rate and secretion of saliva. Also put true or false and to correct the false statement. We will continue with this type of question. To study covert behaviors, we have to convert them into overt behaviors. To study overt behaviors, we have to convert them into overt behaviors. Next, mental processes include thinking and reasoning. Mental processes include thinking and reasoning. Control refers to the ability to accurately forecast overt and covert behavior. Control refers to the ability to accurately forecast overt and covert behavior. Physiological changes could be associated with behavior. Physiological changes could be associated with behavior. Now, the second type of questions. Put the definition of the following concepts or the following terms. We have to define each one. Number 1, psychology. Number 2, scientific method. Number 3, covert behavior. Number 4, description. Number 5, control. Now, the third type of our questions. Complete the following sentences. Complete the following sentences. Communication is referred to as body language. Fill in the space. Behaviors are private and internal events because they cannot be directly observed. Fill in the space. We can establish cause-effect relationships among variables. Refers to expressing self in talking and speech. Fill in the space. Psychology differs from common sense or non-scientific source of knowledge by applying the method. would like to answer all of these questions with you, and you can give yourself a grade. Question number one. Participation in psychological research must be voluntary. Now I would like to go to the slide and try to find out the answer. In chapter 1, while we are defining psychology or answering the question of what is psychology, already we have talked about some ethics in psychological research. And as we said before, ethics in psychological research include many rules, many codes, such as ethical codes. They are referred to as ethical codes or ethics. Some of these ethics, like as participation, must be voluntary. You are free to share or not. You are free to participate or not. Never ever I can coerce anyone to share or to participate in a psychological research. And also, we have talked about confidentiality, and they are free to withdraw in any time, and deception. And we said that deception is not allowed. But the only case the deception is accepted if the experiment doesn't include any dangers. Now, what about our question? Participation in the psychological research must be voluntary. Yes, true. The answer is true. Number two, question number two. Participants in psychological research include humans only. Now, I will go to our slide. I will check our slides. We classified participants in psychological research into two types. Number one, human participants. Number two, animal participants. So our answer to this question, participants in psychological research include humans only, false. And if we try to correct this sentence, participants in psychological research includes humans and animals. The next question, verbal report is referred to as body language. Verbal report is referred to as body language. Now I will go to our slides. I will check our slides. And you have to remember, verbal report is referred to as body language. We classified the subject matter of psychology into three basic categories. Number one, overt behavior. Number two, covert behavior. Number three, some biological and physiological aspects. And in overt behavior, we classified, already we defined it as it refers to responses that are directly observable, and they can be classified into three subtypes: motor activities, verbal reports, and non-verbal communication. Verbal reports, it means expressing yourself by talking and speech. While in non-verbal communication, you don't use language. It is referred to as body language. And they are such as eye contact, body posture, personal space, and facial expression. Now, what about our question? Verbal report is referred to as body language. False. Which is referred to as body language, non-verbal communication. So it's false, and the correct answer, non-verbal communication, is referred to as body language. The next question, reasoning is considered as overt behavior. Sorry, it is not an as. Change it to as. Is considered as overt behavior. Or we can also say is considered an overt behavior. No problem. Okay. Both are true. Reasoning is considered as overt behavior. Really, reasoning is overt behavior? No. Check this slide. Covert behavior refers to events that take place within an individual, happen within the individual. So they are private and internal. They are not directly observed. And they may include feelings, emotions, moods, motives, attitudes, beliefs, thinking, imagination, and also reasoning. So, our answer to this question, reasoning is considered as overt behavior, no, false. Is the correct answer is reasoning is considered as covert behavior. And also, we can answer this question in a different way. I am going to keep overt behavior and it changes the word reasoning. In that case, which is considered as overt behavior, as we said a few seconds ago. Motor activities, for example, any type of motor activity, fine motor activity, gross motor activity, and check this slide, and also verbal and non-verbal communication. Description leads to establishing cause-effect relationships between variables. Description leads to establishing cause-effect. Do you think in description we can answer the question of why and we can discover cause-effect relationship? No. Check the definition of description. Description means naming or classifying without asking why. It should be without asking why. So we cannot answer the question of why. But in explanation, we can discover cause effect relationship in explanation or understanding. So our answer, description leads to establishing cause effect relationships between variables, false. And we have to change the word description by the word of explanation or understanding. Physiological changes are like heart rate and the secretion of saliva. Yes, check this slide and you will find the answer. This is the third type of the subject matter of psychology, which is referred to as physiological changes, physiological variables that correlated with behavior. Either we are talking about overt and covert behavior, and they are such as heart rate, blood pressure, secretion of saliva, and the electrical conductivity of the skin, or which is abbreviated as or abbreviated to GSR or galvanic skin resistance. So physiological changes are like heart rate and secretion of saliva. Yes, true. To study covert behaviors, we have to convert them into overt behavior. Do you think in order to study covert behavior, we have to convert them into overt behavior so we can measure them? Yes, and you can find this answer. This sentence is true, and you can find the answer in the following slide. To be able to study covert behavior, we have to convert it into overt behavior. So, in the case of covert behavior, we defined it as we can measure it, we can observe it indirectly, not indirect way. Indirectly, but the overt behavior we can observe them directly, but covert behavior indirect. Mental processes include thinking and reasoning. Yes, it's true, and you can check this slide to be sure that it is true. Mental processes include thoughts and ideas, as well as more complex aspects of reasoning and all cognitive functions such as creativity, intelligence, memory, perception, attention, learning, thinking, reasoning, abstraction, and so on. Control refers to the ability to accurately forecast and or covert behavior. This sentence false because which is the ability to forecast, which is referred to as the ability to forecast, is prediction, not control. Control is referred to as modification or altering the conditions that affect or maintain the behavior. And you can check these two slides. This is the definition of prediction. Prediction refers to the ability to accurately forecast. So not prediction, not modification, it is prediction. And in order to correct this sentence, we have to change this word, prediction, to be prediction, not control. But also check the slide which talks about control. Control is referred to as the modification and can it be achieved by altering or changing conditions that affect the behaviors in a predictable way. In other words, we can refer to it as the ability to arrange for an event to happen and then modify or control it. For example, if I am going to change my style of teaching, this is the educational system used in order to get high score. I'm changing myself to change your understanding of the material or the curriculum. Or in therapeutic procedures, therapy is one type of control or modification because we are trying to remove symptoms or decrease the severity of it. Okay. Physiological changes could be associated with behavior. Yes, sure. Physiological changes could be associated with the behavior. So our subject matter of psychology, as I said from few minutes, number one, overt behavior, number two, second behavior, number three, physiological changes or physiological variables that are correlated with behavior. Either we are talking about overt behavior or covert behavior. Now, definitions. Who can define psychology? I check these slides to be able to define psychology. Slide number one, the first definition. Psychology is referred to as the scientific study of overt and covert behavior in humans and animals. And the second slide, psychology can be defined as the science of behavior and the mental process that seeks to describe and explain aspects of human thoughts, feelings, perception, and action. What about the scientific method? Look at this slide to figure out the definition of scientific method. This is the definition of scientific method. The scientific method is a basic strategy that's carefully designed to ensure that reliable facts are established and observations can be replicated by independent and other investigators. I mean by other investigators, other researchers. What about the definition of covert behavior? Check the definition of covert behavior in this slide. It refers to events that take place. Take place within means happen within an individual. They are private and internal. They are indirectly observed. And you cannot observe them directly, but you can observe them indirectly. And also we can define covert behavior by mentioning some examples of the covert behavior, such as the feelings, emotions, moods, motives, attitudes, beliefs, thinkings, imagination, reasoning, personality characteristics, and so on. What about description? And also what about control? Let's check these two slides to be able to find out the definition of description and also the definition of control. Look at these slides. It says description refers to naming or classifying without asking why. This is the definition of description. What about the definition of control or modification? We have many definitions. Definition number one, it is also referred to as modification, and it can be achieved by altering or changing conditions that affect the behavior. And in other words, control, this is the second definition. Control refers to the ability to arrange for an event to happen and then modify or control it. Remember, control is also referred to as modification. So if I ask you about the definition of control, the answer will be the same for the question of what is the definition of modification. Now complete the following sentence. We have image space and you have to fill this space. Communication is referred to as body language. The correct answer is non-verbal communication is referred to as body language. Behaviors are private and internal events because they cannot be directly observed. I'm sure now you know the answer because as we said a few seconds ago, this is covert behavior, which are private and internal events and they cannot directly be observed. So the answer is covert behaviors. In we can establishing a cause-effect relationship. I'm sure you will be able now to complete this sentence. In explanation or understanding. In explanation or understanding, we can answer the question of why and we can answer cause effect relationship. This is explanation or understanding. Look, refers to expressing self in talking and speech. As we said before, verbal reports or verbal communication means expressing yourself in talking and speech. So the answer is verbal communication, or we can also say verbal reports. Verbal communication or verbal reports. Psychology differs from common sense or non-scientific source of knowledge by applying, check this slide and they will be able to answer this question. Why does psychology differ from common sense or non-scientific source of knowledge? Because psychology applies the scientific methods. So the study of psychology is exact and systematic. And already we defined the scientific method. So by applying the scientific method. Psychology differs from common sense or non-scientific source of knowledge by applying the scientific methods. That's all in this video. I hope you can be able now to figure out. That's all in this video. I hope you can be able now to figure out the type of questions that could be asked to you about which